Hey, how easy is life? Yeah, there's a lot of amazing, miraculous deliciousnesses on this planet. So many exquisite elements to experience as a human on this planet. And there are also, in really stark contrast, some dark, dense, ugly, unexplainable, challenging, and sometimes actually unbearable elements to being a human on this planet. But my curiosity is in how we do or how we manage our experiences of suffering compared to our experience of surrendering. Because perspective plays a really enormous role. So where does your perspective actually come from? Like, our DNA isn't responsible for our perspective. Perspective and how we make meaning is often just automatic because it's been nurtured and conditioned and practiced into us. Like, we've picked up a lot of our perspective capacity via a kind of osmosis. At the moment, sadly, I've got a friend who's in hospital with a suspected return of cancer, but she boldly demonstrates this true palpable power of perspective and how it affects the degree of suffering compared to the degree of surrender that we will feel. Really often, though, we try to implement more helpful perspective or more positive perspective to try and improve our experience, to be more surrendered compared to sitting in suffering. Sometimes there is a force within our being that overrides the mind's plans and the mind's attempts to make meaning or to process hardship or to process challenges, to process life with less suffering as a consequence. What is it within us that has this power to override our mind and our mindset? An example that I can share to explain why is it's a personal one. Since I was a super young teenager, I have been super stubborn. I've been a stubborn, stoic little trucker in that I trust no one with my suffering. I trust no one with my challenges or with my emotional battles. I share nothing of what I might really be going through internally, emotionally, and mentally. And I say this in the present tense. I have improved in this space immensely, but it's a tendency that I have developed to consciously, and I have to consciously manage it. And it's worth the effort to consciously manage that tendency for myself to shut down instead of open up. But upon exploration into why I did this, I discovered why during a mind detox process that I went through, that at the age of about 13, I made a deal with the devil. A bit dramatic. I made a formula in my psyche that said, I will never let myself need anyone emotionally ever again. I will never be that weak ever again. People aren't available. People aren't interested. And on top of that, being vulnerable and allowing myself to feel the need for someone else's support, it may also end in me being rejected. And also, anyone else who seemed emotionally broken down or openly vulnerable, to me, they were being weak. Ugh. Long story short, how I developed that root cause event was that I was upset one day and I allowed myself to be vulnerable and seek emotional support from Dad. And I remember running into the lounge room where he was watching TV, and I fell into him and I wrapped my arms around him, and he shut down. He stiffened up and he rejected my call for help, pushed me away, which in that moment I took personally. I made his reaction all about me. It was my fault. And then I charged up certain emotions in my body around that experience. And I made it mean certain things about life. Boom! I locked in a pattern and a formula into my subconscious that automated functionality and didn't need my conscious mindset to activate. And we all do this. We all have done this in our developmental years. We have all locked in certain formulas from certain events that are operating in the background in our subconscious or automatically, just like you breathe automatically. So when we find ourselves suffering or being hijacked by a part of our automated responses to life, it's super likely that you have unintentionally locked in some unhelpful meaning-making formulas. The formulas don't need us to think in order to activate them. They become activated when certain situations are upon us. And when this happens, the formula activates. For example, in my case, if there was an emotional challenge in my marriage or close relationships, I would shut down, retreat, not share my emotions, not share my thoughts, because one, I'd locked in a program to ensure that I didn't. And two, shutting down was, if I didn't shut down, I might get rejected. So until it became conscious and I did that self-work to iron out that program that was operating in an automatic way, overriding my mind, what it knew, what was a better way to show up, I just couldn't rise above the power of the program until I removed it. So much of our dysfunction and our triggers and our inability to do parts of life differently are being directed by these formulas that you've locked in and automated and forgotten about. Can you reflect on areas in your own world where what happens automatically in your emotions and in your responses, they're not really aligned with what your mind would prefer, what your mind is trying for? Or maybe you notice in your kids or in your spouse or in your co-workers or your siblings that they are responding to some situation in a suffering kind of way. It seems like their responses to situations don't really make sense, or it seems like their responses to some stimuli is kind of not super functional, or sits in the space of their suffering as opposed to being able to surrender and not suffer. This kind of background formula, it's happening to all of us often. But my curiosity and care is around how to reduce unnecessary suffering and increase that surrender and that relief and that balance in our experiences with life. I've developed a punchy little ebook with some pretty punchy little cause and effect information that also gives you your own tools for starting to clean up your own collection of subconscious formulas that aren't serving your best life. And I've also given you access to one of the most powerful pattern removing programs that I have in my toolkit, the Mind Detox process, totally free, because I care about clearing up our less than helpful root cause programs, and I care about reducing unnecessary dysfunction and suffering from good people's lives. So reach out if there's any way that I can be of support, but I will put a link in here somewhere that will take you over to my website and open up the page where you'll find the tools that I'm giving to you for free. So I'm sending you big love and really big encouragement for your best life. Bye for now.